Good evening, all. Hello. Blessed Ramadan is here. This is that time of the year when we, as doctors, needs to adjust the treatment of patients who are fasting. So let's now discuss some key points which the patient who are fasting needs to know. Dr. Bashir, sir, you see a lot of diabetic patients in your OPD on a daily basis. So what advice would you give to those patients who wants to fast, and how would you adjust their medications?
Dr. B, the first thing is, suppose a diabetic patient is coming to my OPD. The first thing I have to decide is whether the patient is eligible for fasting. So, the International Diabetes Federation gave a beautiful description on that. So, they are comparing this to a traffic signal. So, in that, for example, like a green signal means they are mild diabetics, so they can fast without any restriction. Yellow signal means they have some risk, so they have to see whether there is an underlying diseases, and then the physician have to assess and decide whether they can go for fasting or not. So the third one is a red signal. These are the patients, they have some serious underlying complications, so they cannot go for a fasting. Now coming to the point of medications, so we have different categories of medications will be there. So some of the medications are very commonly causing low sugar. Some of the medications are very important for diabetic control also. So we have to give a balance on that. So what we do, the medicines which are likely to cause low sugar, we try to reduce them. So we will maintain the medicine which are very important for controlling the blood sugar. So this ideally we have to plan this at least a month ago, so that we can very well plan about the treatment. We also can stratify what are the patients, they have the complications and everything. So now coming to this, I would like to ask some question to Dr. Rajkumar. Dr. Rajkumar, you are being a cardiologist. You will be having a lot of cardiac patients coming to your OPD during fasting also. So, and according to their level of seriousness, how you assess them to go ahead with the safe fasting?
Yeah, we assess them depending upon the clinical status and also the lab reports what they have. We classify them as a low risk, moderate risk, and high risk patient. Low and moderate risk patient like well controlled hypertension or stable angina patient or stable heart failure patient whose ejection fraction is more than 35 or heart failure patient with the preserved ejection fraction and implantable pacemaker patient who are stable and cardiac arrhythmia patient who are already on medication and stable. These patients fall in this low risk and they can continue with the fasting. High risk patient like heart failure, end stage with the NIHA class 3 to 4 or cardiac arrhythmias not well controlled or continuous unstable angina up class 3 to 4 or recent acute heart attacks less than 6 weeks, a post angioplasty up less than 6 months and implantable cardioverter. Such patients fall in high risk and they cannot fast.
Yeah, it's very important. Even recently also I had one patient with a elderly lady with severe cardiac failure. She was very adamant to do fasting. So then I was telling the same thing to them. So then the family agreed that she should not do fasting.
Hello, Dr. Raj. Can you, among the different categories of cardiac patients, whom you advise they should not fast?
Yeah, patient with uncontrolled hypertension and patients who are having ongoing anginal pain and heart failure with ejection fraction less than 35 and implantable cardioverter patient and congenital cardiac arrhythmia patient like long QT syndrome patient. Such patient they cannot fast because fasting can cause dehydration and in turn it can cause cardiac arrhythmias and they end up in cardiovascular events.
Dr. Rajkumar. So, at times I've seen patients coming to the OPD telling they have gastritis and acidity kind of symptoms. But how do you really differentiate these people who are really having acidity related symptoms or people who have coronary artery disease like heart attack? What do you
Yeah.
suggest?
Most of the patient, especially in the fasting, they will be having a gastritis, and the pain sometimes also be in the epigastrium, also it can go back also. But any patient who is having a diabetes or multiple risk factors like hypertension, dyslipidemia, any other conditions, disease conditions, they should not neglect any kind of pain. Even though it is a gastritis, first thing they have to do is consult a doctor and take an ECG and do the cardiac enzyme, because most of the time many cardiac morbidities, cardiac diseases, most of the time it will be cardiac issue. And patient usually having a pain of more than 20 minutes. It goes like anginal pain. Gastritic pain will be with a less duration, less seconds or maybe in a minutes, may not be radiating. So they can keep in the mind that continuous pain of more than 20 minutes with radiation to the hand or back, maybe having associated symptoms like nausea, vomiting, or lightheadedness. So such patients should consult doctor and take ECG immediately and do the cardiac enzymes.
Yeah. So it's a very, very important point. So only thing, in Ramadan, there is a lot of gastric patients will be there. But in some of them, the jackal will be in the sheep. So some of them may be a real cardiac thing. So we have to identify that. So it's a very valid point.
And some of the diabetic patient, they may have silent heart attack,
Yes, yes.
though they don't have a typical anginal pain, but some non-typical pain can be also end up in cardiac issues. Dr. Abhi, I
Yes.
think you'll be seeing multiple cases in the your OPD. So usually the what type of cases you see in OPD with the gastrointestinal issues?
Yes, Dr. Raj. So we get all kind of patients during Ramadan, but during Ramadan per se, that is patients who fast. What I usually see is more of upper abdominal symptoms, like acidity related, gastritis, pain in the upper abdomen, a feeling of nausea, sometimes vomiting, gastroesophageal reflex with burning in the chest and abdomen, sometimes constipation, and maybe a bit of loose stools also. So these are the usual cases which I see in the OPD. But at the same time, we get normal other GA related cases also.
So, as Dr. Abhi was telling, a lot of gastric worsening of symptoms, sometimes existing acidity and all worsening you can see. Also, a lot of other pertaining, mostly many of the complications in Ramadan, what I have seen is mostly of the gastric symptoms, constipation and gastritis and other things. So, Dr. B, how you usually managing this kind of patients?
Yes, sir. As you rightly said, I see lots of upper abdominal symptoms like gastritis and reflux symptoms and constipation and all that. What I would say, there are a few points which I would like to summarize in 4 to 5 points. First and foremost would be to drink enough water. Okay, that is point number one. That is at least a person who is fasting, he needs to drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water. That will be approximately around it will be around 9 to 12 glasses of water in a day, even though the time is limited.
Yeah, that is the so it is between that iftar and shuhur. They have to spread out the yes, yeah.
And second thing would be to eat enough fiber in their diet. Fiber would be an oatmeal, a whole grain bread, or maybe a boiled vegetable, something like that. What we usually see is people tend to eat more of meat and chicken and things like that. So without enough fiber, so that might lead on to constipation and maybe a bit of dehydration and things like that. And even it will increase the acidity and bloating also. Third point, what I would say is not to overeat in a short span of time. Like after iftar, people tend to eat lots of food in a short duration. So that can increase the acidity, gases, bloating, and reflux and things like that. So that has to be avoided. And at the same time, avoid eating lots of fatty and oily stuff and chips and caffeinated soda, cola, and things like that. Further worsen the symptoms and increases the reflux, causes bloating, and caffeine sometimes can cause dehydration. It actually is a mild diuretic. It increases the urine and it might cause lead on to constipation as well as dehydration. So that needs to be avoided. And another point is these people has to adjust their sleep also. It's like not to sleep immediately after eating food. Many a times what people do is at the time of sahur or even after eating at before their dinner, they eat and then just go and sleep, maybe within an hour of eating. So it's better that that is avoided. At least try to give some time, 1 or 2 hours between eating and then sleep.
Yeah, it is really, that's a point because many of the patients coming with the indigestion, one of the reason is this.
Eating, yeah. So this would be the main points, sir, regarding adjusting our diet during Ramadan.
Dr. Nitya, you will be having many pregnant ladies during Ramadan. So, what advice you give to pregnant ladies who are fasting?
Okay. Actually, fasting is a personal choice, but it's very important to ensure the well-being and safety of the pregnant woman as well as the unborn baby. So, I advise all women who are planning to fast during this Ramadan first to consult your obstetrician and get a health assessment done for them. Your doctor will assess. We should tell the patients like they will assess according to the risk factors, any uh, previous history of complications during the pregnancy, and they will advise whether they're eligible for fast or not. And utmost importance should be given for a balanced and healthy diet, and more importance for the good hydration during pregnancy. It will benefit them.
Also, I also what I feel is like regarding their eligibility in general, we should tell them that not to get to do fasting. But in this part of the world, many of the patients, even they are pregnant, they are insisting
Yeah.
for fasting.
Actually, in
That,
diabetic
yeah.
patients, high risk medical conditions like hypertension, renal disease, cardiac patients, fasting is not ideally recommended, but patients are willing, they like to
So,
fast during this Ramadan.
as in
So,
what we you said in your cardiology also, in gynecology also, they have to classify who are at high
yeah,
risk and who are very safe to do the fasting.
in early pregnancies, like,
Yes.
yeah, if they are having morning sickness, severe symptoms like nausea, vomiting, they are not ideal candidates for,
Yes.
yeah. When they are having more recurrent history of recurrent UTI, urinary infections, they are not ideal candidates for fasting. So you will be seeing more patients during this Ramadan fasting with difficulties of sleep. Some will be sleeping more during till suhoor. Some are not able to sleep. How you advise such patients to regulate the sleep cycle and all?
Yeah. So regarding sleep, uh, I tell my own thing. Usually, what happens in the first half of the Ramadan, maybe our calorie reserve will be more, so we don't feel much. But when I sleep, especially towards the iftar time, you see in the dreams a lot of nice food and biryani and all coming. So, see, the sleep is what I usually advise. Like, as far as possible, patients should try to maintain a good amount of sleep in a single stretch. So, in Ramadan, it's not that difficult. See, for example, after iftar, they will go for the prayer, then they have enough time. So, what they can do, say, for example, from the night, say around 10 o'clock, up to the shuhur time, they will get around 6 hours. Okay. But some patients, what they do, especially in Ramadan, they are usually after iftar, they have a tendency to go for a late sleep. So especially patients who are diabetics and other comorbidities and all, this carries a bit risk because the sleep pattern will be disturbed. And second thing, what they do, they sleep late, then they get up at the shuhur, then again they go for sleep. So this gives a kind of sedentary lifestyle in Ramadan. So that's why most of the patients we advise have the sleep after iftar, say after a reasonable night, for example, like between 9 and 10, then till shuhur. That is allowed by the Ramadan rule also. So they have to get up only before the shuhur. Yeah. Yes. 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 Otherwise, what happens? It will affect not many, most of the people are working people. So this kind of fragmented sleep affected their working atmosphere also. So these are the a healthy sleep pattern as far as possible we have to try to maintain.
Dr. Raj, Dr. Raj, there will be lots of patients who are taking blood thinner medications,
Yes, correct.
anticoagulants. How to go about it during Ramadan?
In Ramadan, actually, there are two kinds of anticoagulation. One is oral anticoagulation like warfarin. Another is normal oral anticoagulation, Novax or Duax, what you call, like apixaban and edoxaban. Some of the anticoagulation in Ramadan, like taking once a daily, is okay. They can take in suhoor time or maybe after
Anticoagulation in the blood thinners.
blood thinners.
Maintenance.
So they can maintain their iron without any skipping the tablet. But some of the patients, they do feel some issues of taking two times in a day. The placement of these two tablets, taking in the morning and evening, there should be adequate gap between at least 8 hours to 12 hours. Some patient, they take a double tablet in one time. And some patient, they would like to skip the evening tablet or maybe the morning tablet due to their sleep pattern, something like that. So the second tablet, when they don't take, so that time the patient may not get an adequate anticoagulation effect. So they may end up in having some stroke or cardiovascular heart attack blockages.
Okay.
So the placement of the medicine, the anticoagulation, and we need to advise them to give as much as gap if they are taking two tablets, maybe adequate gap of within the frame limit of the religion beliefs what they have the timing.
They can take
So
one during iftar.
iftar.
And one is
So at least 8 to 10 hours gap if they can make it. Then the double tablet what they're supposed to take in a day, it will be ideal without any complications.
Okay.
Dr. Gabi, I think you'll be having some general questions by the patient in Ramadan, like what kind of food they have to eat in Ramadan and how much quantity they should eat and what type of food and the so such kind of questions you might be getting frequently.
Yes.
So what usually you advise to such patients?
Yes. So, Dr. Raj, what we see is what we know is during Ramadan we have less hours to eat.
Yeah.
So, what people usually do is whatever time they have, they try to eat a lot of food in a short span of time. So, what I usually say is like try to reduce that fasting hours as much as possible. So, how do we do that? What we do is at the time of suhoor, try to eat as late as possible, and
Correct.
at the time of iftar, try to eat as early as possible, but not in one go. You need to pace yourself. So, like morning, at the time of suhoor, you eat late. That is over. You go into fasting.
Yeah.
Evening, during iftar, you start with a light meal, maybe some dates or something like that, a glass of water. Then slowly start eating more. Your main meal comes after maybe half an hour or something like that, and keep on eating small snacks and glasses of water till you sleep. But at the same time, try to stop eating at least 1 to 2 hours before you sleep also, so that it doesn't cause aggravate your gastritis and acidity kind of symptoms also. That's what I usually
And
tell them.
what kind of food usually you advise them in
So
Ramadan?
again, people tend to eat more of fatty and oily and stuff, and also they tend to take carbonated and soft drinks with caffeine and soda. I mean, the carbonated drinks. So that is not a good idea. People should take a balanced kind of diet. They should add fiber into
Yeah, I
their
have seen the
diet.
patient taking multiple dates and the sugary
Yes,
drinks and as well as
yes.
fried samosas,
Yes,
oil
sugary
food.
drinks is not a good idea. Maybe once in a while might be okay, but the sugar actually can cause a bit of
Dehydration.
dehydration, and again causes more of acidity and gases and bloating because of the carbon dioxide in them. So better to avoid them. Idea is to have a balanced diet and pace yourself.
So,
Don't eat
so the
lots
whole
in
idea
short.
is like having a low carbs, high protein, and low fat, which will not cause much
Yes,
of
with
gastritis,
enough fiber.
fiber.
Yes, and enough water. So that would be a good meal.
so that's clear, Dr. Abhi. like Dr. Rajkumar telling, many patients during fasting, because in here the issue is, it's a long hours of fasting. It's about 15 to 6, not like our in India and also like our long hours of fasting. So they are very hungry and they have a tendency to drink a high sugar carbonated drinks, and they are very craving for very fascinating foods like fried things and all. So can you just detail more about it? Like, is it a good idea that they should have this kind of sweetened things, or they should avoid, or
And
what is?
that is never a good idea, sir. What I would say is at the time of iftar, when you break your fast, but best thing is to go for a small snack, maybe few dates. That is a good idea. A few sips of water, and wait for some time, maybe for 10 or 15 minutes. Then slowly try to eat more. Maybe drink a glass of water or a couple of glasses of water. Then go for your a bit more snack, and then go for your main meal. That would be a better idea, and that is pacing yourself, and the abdomen doesn't get bloated, you don't get too much of reflux, and generally the patient tolerates it very well. So that's what I usually tell them to do.
Yes, they need to avoid the high calories diet.
Yes, in a short span of
Even
time,
some
but
people
to
I have
pace
seen
yourself.
eating many dates. The dates contains even high sugar as well as contains high
Yeah,
calories.
yes, yes.
They put on adding the weight.
Yes, dates is a good idea for people who are not diabetic.
We can
But
limit,
again,
I
at
think.
at the same time, when they are diabetic and all, then we would need the advice of internal medicine or diabetology. So, sir, Kashif sir, how do you, what kind of meal plan do you give to diabetic patients who visit you? I mean, the meal plan for Ramadan time.
Per se, the meal plan for diabetic patient Ramadan and the non-Ramadan period doesn't grossly doesn't change. The principle is same. Like as far as possible, we should avoid sugar and sweets. Then, as you said, try to spread out the meals. Okay, so they had to stretch from the iftar till shuhur. They have to spread out it. Then, as I told you, like it is a long hours of fasting. So we have to avoid hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia, like low sugar episodes. So to avoid that, always the food should be rich in fiber, like parboiled rice, wheat flour, green vegetables, oats, okay, flaxseed, then fruits and all. So this, what happened? This will delay the absorption of carbohydrate. So it will not lead to a low sugar level, what we call the hypoglycemia.
Slow energy release food.
Yeah, slowly it will be digested. And then second thing, as you mentioned, like they should start in small amounts, then go for usually what I do is like I take a small amount, then go for the prayer, then we'll have a main meal, then we'll have a gap. So you can go for whatever you are, do some exercise, walking and all, then come back, then you can have a light food, then you sleep, then you go for a shuhur. So this is principle can be followed for everyone. So diabetic patients also, the more, only thing is diabetic patients have to be a little bit choosy, because the one thing is, it's not that because some of the patient, they what they do, because they are fasting so many hours, they can go for any kind of sweets and sugar, there is no harm. That is the dangerous attitude of the patient. So that we need to educate them and tell them that that's a wrong thing to do. So they have to go for a thing. But as you said, like while opening the iftar, they can have one or two dates, because they have so much of time of fasting. So it doesn't harm. I don't think it will harm them even if it's a diabetic patients. So mainly this is the in principle. It will be like a sugar free, without sweets, and lot of fiber foods, and lot of green vegetables and fruits, and small meals, and as far as possible to spread out in between the iftar and shuhur. Dr. Rajkumar, like during fasting, you will be seeing lot of cardiac patients, and there are some multiple cardiac illness will be there. Some patients are severe. They have different kind of diet restrictions will be there. So usually these patients, they will have some patients, they eat lot of salt during fasting time Ramadan, especially in iftar and shuhur time. And some patients either they will be not taking enough water, or some patients will be taking too much water. So pertaining to the cardiac illnesses, I think some of the diseases have some restrictions on this salt intake and this water intake, and what are the type of food they have to avoid and take. So what is your recommendation for these patients in
So most of the patient, these people, they should have less salt intake. First of all, the American Heart Association recommended the salt intake is 1.5 sodium, 1.5 grams per day.
So
How-
1.5
grams of
normally
sodium.
pinch of salt will be around 1 gram.
No,
right?
the common salt will be like 6 grams to 10 grams. But as such, sodium is 1.5 grams
Okay.
per day. Because these patients will be having hypertension and diabetes, dyslipidemia, and sometimes cardiovascular disease like heart attack. And heart failure patient,
Like almost
yeah, it comes around that much. Teaspoon, the half of the teaspoon of maximum 1 teaspoon per day. And water intake in the heart failure patient should be limited depending upon the what stage of the pumping they have. If the pumping action is less than 35, that is almost third stage to fourth stage of the heart failure, they should limit the water intake to 500 ml to 700 ml per day.
Usually we don't allow them to fast. Yeah. But in case.
In case some of the patient, as you said, some they insist, they because of the religion belief,
Yes,
at least some of the days they want to do fasting.
Yeah, yeah.
So such patient we can advise this one. And other cardiac patients, the food is like healthy food. What they have to go. Yeah, now Dr. Abi just now said that about high fiber diet, at least 30 grams of fiber per day, and also high protein diet, less carbohydrates, and low fat yogurt or low fat milk. They can opt. And sugary items, usually in the cardiology, we completely say them not to have any sugary items. So zero sugar is better. As much as low we can keep is much, much better. Uh, and food, a lot of 90% should be plant-based food, like green leafy vegetables, nuts, fruits. Only 10% can be from the animal side, like dairy products, or chicken, fish, egg, poultry. So they can have 10%. So 90% of the food should be from the plant-based source.
So,
So-
what I understood, in a general sense, it doesn't differ so much into the usual diet. I mean, what we are addressing for the cardiac patients.
Yeah, the people they should advise they should have the healthy food. Only the particular patients like heart failure, as you said, end stage heart failure patient, they should be more cautious, and they should refrain from doing fasting as well. Yeah. And also, Dr. Nitya, I think you'll be seeing many pregnant ladies in OPD. So, how you advise them the diet and the
During
hydration
this Ramadan fasting,
during this Ramadan fasting?
I would suggest all pregnant ladies should take a healthy, balanced diet, rich in protein and fiber. And when they break their fast during iftar, they should avoid certain foods like salty food, sugary juices, and all refined carbs. They should avoid because this will lead to more dehydration and they will feel more thirst during the fasting hours. They should include more wholesome meal like oatmeals, pulses, green leafy vegetables. They can include more fruit juices, fresh juices, and all. And at most important,
Particular food you tell them to avoid, like some patient they have this pregnant lady should not take the papaya.
yeah, in the initial stage only. Otherwise, it's not like that. And they should avoid this oily food, fried things, this refined carbs and all. They should avoid better.
And they are also more prone for constipation also.
Yeah, fiber-rich food should be included. And like that, hydration is of very much importance because they should take at least 2.5 to 3 liters during their non-fasting time. And like we should advise, like they should take around 10 to 12 glass of water.
First trimester to third
Yeah,
trimester.
yeah, yeah.
Same intake of water.
Yes, yes. At least 2.5 liters is required per day. So, and they should have divided small meals because they cannot take too much meal and they will end up with other symptoms like gastritis, vomiting, and all. So, I advise take small meals in divided time. They should split the meals. From iftar till shuhur, they should take spacing the diet. That's very important. And they should take adequate rest also, because they will end up with dehydration, because their calorie need is more during this pregnancy. So they should adjust the timing and
Yeah, because ladies are usually very busy in kitchen during Ramadan. So we
yeah,
advise them to take it.
physical activity also they should
Yeah.
reduce to optimize the intake according to the intake of food.
Dr. Nitya, regarding breastfeeding mothers, what kind of nutritional and diet plan would you suggest at the time of Ramadan?
During this Ramadan fasting, lactating mother, like breastfeeding mothers, need more calories than during their pregnancy time. So all should be aware that they need more food during this time, and hydration is very much important because most of the water, the milk content is water. So they should give more importance for hydration and a balanced diet during this time.
Dr. Abhi, I have a lot of working class patients are there. They are especially working in outdoor workers are there. So there will be a lot of sweating will be there. Luckily this time the weather is little calm. Otherwise last year and all it was very hot. So these poor guys will be working outdoor and a lot of sweating will be there, a lot of dehydration will be there. Even otherwise also for a normal people also, because the long hours of fasting, you can expect a kind of some amount of dehydration. So how to tackle this, how to manage these patients and allow them to do a fasting?
Yes, sir. So during Ramadan, there is always a chance of people getting dehydrated as the intake of water is restricted to extreme poles of the day. What I usually suggest, for that matter, any person who is fasting is to take at least around 2.5 to 3 liters of water in a day and pace it. Like at the time of suhoor, maybe take 2 to 3 glasses of water before he goes into fasting. And at the time of when the fasting is over, at the time of iftar, maybe drink another 3 to 4 glasses of water in a paced manner, slowly. First, initially, maybe few sips, then few glasses that way, and another 4 to 6 glasses over the period of next few hours before he sleeps, so that there is enough water reserve in the body, and the chance of getting dehydrated is very less. That's what I would.
And also shuhur time they can have little more water so that they can have a reserve also.
Yes, sir. Yes, and working people, for that matter, they need to take more water.
More
We're
water,
already
yes.
losing
Yes, yeah,
lots of
very
water
important.
as sweat. So that's another scenario.
That's why, as you said, they should avoid this water draining food, dry fried things and all.
Yes,
salty
yes. That
food,
again can add
cracked
on to the
items.
dehydration. Yes, 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 yes.
I think they can also have lime water like antioxidants,
Yes.
which
And
will
also, Dr. Raju were mentioning about the fruits, that
the fruits like water content fruits like pineapple,
watermelon.
plums,
Yes.
watermelon.
Melon.
They can retain water in the daytime in the fasting time.
Yes. Dr. Rajkumar, regarding physical activity and exercises during Ramadan, what do you suggest? What time is the best time, and what's your opinion regarding this?
Fasting people, they should walk at least 30 to 45 minutes, 120 to 150 steps per minute. That's a low intensity, what we advise. And resistance exercise, they can do it twice in a week with all major muscles involved. They should do these exercises in a shady or cool environment to avoid hot places and avoid the dehydration. And the best time is like some patient, if they are doing the light intensity exercises, the people can do in the iftar time, just before the time of the iftar. If they would like to go for the second round of exercise, or maybe they want to extend after iftar, light food, and they can do the walking and resistance exercises. Just before the suhoor also, some people, they can do around 15 to 20 minutes of exercise, and after that they can have their food, suhoor food.
So, just Rajkumar, I want to add a few things regarding the exercise. See, I have been seeing a lot of my diabetic patients. See, one thing I noted, some of my patients, they have been well controlled, and after Eid, when they come, the sugar suddenly goes up. When I ask them whether you are doing exercise, they say, no, sir, it's Ramadan. So I'm not doing exercise. So this is one wrong concept. Okay. So Ramadan doesn't mean that we should not do exercise. We should do an exercise. Probably, as you said, it's not the level where usually we do pre-Ramadan, but we should do a reasonable level of exercise. And it is after iftar, they can do it. It's not a thing. But another interesting thing, one patient was asking whether he can go to the gym during fasting time. Now, this is a very wrong thing because when you are dehydrated and they are very prone for ketosis. This is one of the toxic thing we call the ketones in the blood. So when the fasting time, when they go for hard exercise, this will lead to a lot of dehydration. They can get a lot of cardiac complications. So these kind of things are very, very dangerous. So patients should not, or in part not, people who are fasting should not allow exercise during the fasting time. So who are doing the exercise, they should do it after iftar. And especially, as you Dr. Abi was telling, they should have a light meal during the iftar, then they go for an exercise, then once you finish the exercise they can have their proper meal. That should be the way
Correct.
they
They should
should do.
avoid heavy intensity exercise.
Sir, lots of diabetic patients do fasting during Ramadan. When do you think these people should stop fasting, or what are the danger symptoms that should prompt them to stop fasting?
This is an important thing we should know, and this is a part of patient education also, because who are diabetic patients, they are on fasting. We should give them this clear warning. What are the things we have to do and when to stop? So, especially in diabetic patients, if they are have an unexplained sweating or dizziness, so those are the symptoms of low sugar. So if they don't have an access for a sugar checkup, so there's immediately they should break the fasting. And then if any patient have an access to sugar checkup, so what the International Diabetic Federation is promoting, patients if their sugar is less than 3.5 millimole or if it is more than 18 millimole, they should immediately break the fasting. And any patients, that's why we are always screening them before starting the Ramadan to see whether there is any frequent episodes of low sugar. So those are the patients we never advise them to go for fasting. Other than that, any patient unexplained sweatings, or sometimes, especially in very long-standing diabetes patients, you only get a headache, even because of their nerve effect. Many of these low sugar symptoms will be masked. So they will be usually either they will go into dizziness, sometimes even they go into unconsciousness, sometimes they will have only severe headache and all. So wherever possible, we can check the sugar. But even in that matter also, even if the sugar is normal also, whenever patient has got such kind of symptoms, it is better to break the fasting, not to continue. Because it could be a low sugar or it could be some other disease. See, for example, some patients with it could be a symptom of some cardiac illness. It could be a symptoms of some stroke symptoms. So any such kind of patients have severe headache, or patients having a severe dizziness or unexplained sweating or tiredness. And so those kind of patients, or even diabetic patients, sometimes they get some infection and they get a very high fever. So those are the patients, they immediately break the fasting. Also now, this I was talking about pertaining to the diabetic patients. Now coming to the general people, so what are the situations where we ask them to immediately break your fasting? So, what are the situations? What kind of symptoms, alarming symptoms, where you tell them that you should
So
immediately?
regarding pertaining to gastroenterology, what I would say is acidity and gases and constipations are fairly common. So many a times what people do is they tend to ignore these symptoms. But there are few symptoms or few scenarios when this has to be taken a bit more seriously. What I would say is, say, suppose somebody is having significant pain in the abdomen, which is not going away. Patients having recurrent vomiting, which was not there before. Any recent change, which was not there before, is significant in gastroenterology. and also a blood in the stool or a dark colored stool. All these are features of something more sinister, more something probably a bleeding peptic ulcer or something like that. So these scenarios, anyway, it's not never a good idea to fast because the fasting might increase the symptoms. And also the person needs to visit a doctor or a clinic or a hospital immediately because these symptoms are not normal. These are significant and needs to be evaluated further. On that note, I would like to share regarding one patient who came to me a couple of years back during Ramadan. This patient again had a abdominal pain, which was upper abdominal, but he thought probably it is because of fasting and he ignored it. But the pain was not going away. And I asked him to go for further testing, including an endoscopy. But at that time, patient was not willing, probably he because he wanted to continue the fast. But unfortunately, he came back to me in a few days' time with vomiting of blood, a case of hematemesis. So I had to admit him and get an upper endoscopy done on an emergency basis, and it turned out to be bleeding peptic ulcer. And endoscopic hemostasis has had to be done during clips and using clips and all that. So again, there was a clue that he was having significant pain, but the patient ignored it, and it turned out to be something bad. So these kind of things, when they feel it is not all right, there is no harm in asking for the opinion of a doctor or visiting a clinic. That's what I would say, sir.
Same thing happened. I had one patient in emergency with a severe epigastric burning. So it was actually a restaurant owner. So we were actually advising to take an ECG, but he was insisting that every Ramadan he get a severe gastritis. So, but after we have insisting so much, he was ready to do an ECG, and ultimately it turned to be an acute heart attack. So these are the things which always we have to keep in mind. Any kind of unusual
Yes.
symptoms,
Unusual symptom.
immediately to warrant to stop the fasting and properly evaluate.
Recent onset symptoms, recent changes in
Yes.
habits. Dr. Nitya, regarding pregnant ladies who do fasting, what kind of advice do they give them? And is there any scenario where they should stop fasting immediately? What do you have to say?
During this Ramadan fasting, if pregnant ladies are coming with some sudden onset of symptoms like they are feeling very weak, tired, lethargic, or severe feeling of thirst, that is a clue like they are having dehydrated. So they should immediately stop fasting and hydrate themselves. And some patients will have features like increased pain while urinating, dysuria, or increased frequency for passing urine. That's also a sign for dehydration. Such candidates should stop fasting and hydrate
And
themselves.
also, I think the incidence of urinary tract infection also more
Yeah.
during
More chance of getting,
fasting.
due
Yeah,
to this dehydration, they will end
hydration.
up with urinary tract infection and further complications like that. And some patients will present with complaints of decreased fetal movements. So initial step is they should hydrate themselves. They should take proper rest and count for the movements and take a clinical assessment further. Raj, among the cardiac patients, whom you would suggest that they should break their fasting before iftar?
Cardiac patients in Ramadan time, actually, if the patient blood pressure is not well controlled, they might be having tablets like ACE inhibitors or ARBs, which may cause hypotension or maybe electrolyte imbalance. They might feel dizziness and fatigue. So such patient, we can advise them to stop the fasting. And also patient, if they are feeling uneasiness, any new symptoms, what they notice, and if they have any chest pain, which is ongoing chest pain, or breathing difficulty, while walking, if they have any shortness of breath, or any palpitation, fast heartbeat, which they notice continuously, such patients, we should advise them to stop the fasting and they can consult, take the medical advice immediately.
So, Dr. Abhi, Dr. Rajakumar, Dr. Nitya, so it was a nice discussion about Ramadan and how patients and public have to be prepared for Ramadan and how to prevent complications, those who are deceased and those who are not deceased. So it was a nice engagement with you all. and at least this will help our public and patients to avoid many catastrophic situations. So they can now, whoever they can watch this, they can very well prepare for a healthy fasting also. So thank you all for this healthy discussion. So we wish each other and all our patients and public a happy and healthy
Healthy
Ramadan. Thank you.